Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Inner Sanctuary. I'm your host, Shirul Khalid. Today I bring you a very in-depth conversation with a good friend of mine, Janko Milunovic. He's a 3X founder, an entrepreneur, ran an accelerator, and also spent quite a few years mentoring 500 companies. He is a very fascinating individual who brings a depth of experience in different aspects of life, from entrepreneurship to travel, adventure, and one of my favorite topics, psychedelics. I met him in New York a few years ago. Went on a couple of adventurous trips during the pandemic. He's a very inspirational, well-grounded, well educated person and a beautiful human being. So we discuss various topics are including the different entrepreneurial projects that he embarked in, uh, the lessons he learned along the way. Or we talk about ancient mysteries, extraterrestrial theories. We delve into mindfulness and meditation and its impact in daily life, and obviously the psychedelic experiences and how or what effect does it have on our consciousness. So watch it from the beginning till the end. Keep an open mind and share. One of the things that inspires me is the more people subscribe to, the more I want to bring this content out. And this is one of my goals this year, to reach out to different people in different range of topics, because I feel everything is connected, and the whole essence of this channel is human potential, self-development, and the various tools that could allow you to reach that potential. Enjoy, have your cup of coffee, and see you guys soon. Janko,
Hi,
yeah, good to see you. Good to see
good
you
to see you,
after a
Shamim.
very long time. Yeah, thank you for willing to have this conversation. I'm glad we've been meaning to schedule this for a very very long time.
It's been some years.
Yeah, yeah. You are in Serbia right now, correct?
No, Ibiza, Spain.
Oh, okay. I thought you were visiting family, right? Are you
I
back?
was, I was, I was back some days ago.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Yeah, Ibiza should be. How is the weather there?
Oh, it's so wonderful. It's still, well, it's officially spring. It feels winterish, and we get a change of weather from sunny to gloomy to wind to rain. Everything is green. We have these seasons of flowers. We had all uh, island covered in yellow flowers. Now they're becoming purple and pink, and then it changes. It's phenomenal, and I warmly recommend to anyone and everyone to visit the island in the winter.
I'm assuming you guys go on a lot of hikes as well, right?
Indeed, I've been going a lot myself, and with friends. And my wife hasn't been following as much lately. She's been busy. But yeah, we live in a bit of a kind of a forest setting. We have no neighbors. We're in nature. We're walking distance to the beach. Some wonderful walks around the house. So I try and move myself as much as I can because I do spend a lot of time in front of a computer.
Beautiful. Well, let me introduce everyone to my good friend Janko. I've known you for quite some time. We met in New York at a party through a couple of common friends. We went on, a couple of adventures. So essentially, you are, a man with many hats on. Like at the core, you have been in venture capital. You're an entrepreneur. You had a couple of startups that I took part in one of your programs. That was you built a community during the pandemic, where we gathered, worked on our own stuff, practiced. It was like a small community where,
Yeah,
when the world was getting chaotic and people are getting scared and anxious, we thrived away in nature. And I think that
yeah,
was a really fundamental aspect. The company was called Ethos. I
Yes,
think we did one time it was in Maine, and the other time was in Tulum. So each had
true.
its our own stories. We could talk about it. It was beautiful, and yeah, you also you ran an accelerator. You mentor other entrepreneurs. I believe you're working on an AI startup on yourself, for helping businesses. And you are a former basketball player. And it also says your profile also says you are a retired psychonaut. We will, eventually we'll speak about your retirement. But yeah, glad to have you. And I want to start at the beginning. You were born in Serbia, correct?
Correct, indeed.
Former Yugoslavia and all this. So you went through. You've seen craziness in your life, and you left the country. You had your own path towards life, and there's been so much craziness happening in the '90s as well. Were you there at that time during the war?
Yes, yes, yes. I was in at that time. It was called Yugoslavia, and although to my luck and blessing in Belgrade, where we were based, the war wasn't really raging there. It was raging, and unfortunately, Bosnia, Croatia, other parts of Serbia, and other kind of states. So we didn't get to experience that war as bad as, or not even as close as bad as people living in those areas of Sarajevo, etc. What was more kind of the tough experience is growing up in stranger times. I'd say there's a bit of a ghetto happening in the neighborhood, a lot of violence, and then after the war, Serbia was under embargo, sanctions for a long time, which gave rise to more mafia, more violence, very tough economic conditions, electricity cutouts, lack of milk, fuel. I can't even remember anything more. But we were kind of young, and we went through that period. It happened. We came out of it very happy and excited, and then Serbia ended up getting bombed in 1999 by NATO, which was more of an experience of war because Belgrade was getting bombed and we were hiding in shelters. Still nothing compared to what a lot of poor people are experiencing nowadays in many parts of the world, including Palestine, etc. But yeah, we got a fraction of it. So I did have an experience of two wars, you could say. Have it in my curriculum.
Yeah. How old were you?
42. I just turned 42
No, no,
48
no. I
hours
mean,
ago. How
okay.
old
First of
was
all,
I? How old was
happy
I?
birthday. Happy
Thank
birthday.
you. Thank you. I'm bad with time. 1999, I'm 84, so I was 15 when the bombing happened. And when the war happened was 91 to 94. So I was very little, 7, 8, 9.
Did that moment shape you to be the person you are today? I'm assuming it does a lot of people, but the path that you have taken in life, especially in terms of in your entrepreneurial journey, I'm curious. Did some of those conditions that you grew up in, or I'm just in a basically more direct, like, what was your inspiration to be who you are today?
Well, I mean, kind of, if you look at it, all of it shapes you without any doubt. Some things I'm more conscious of, some I'm less conscious of. There is a lot of things I wanted to escape from and go elsewhere in the world. I had this desire to leave Serbia since very early age. My mom was trying to arrange for me to play basketball and move to high school in the US, and it was kind of happening. And finally, when it clicked and they said yes, we can send him. There was an opportunity. I actually decided to stay. I felt that I should stay by my mom, but that desire to leave never left me. In a lot of my journey of building companies and being an entrepreneur, I come from part of my family is from my mom's side are all entrepreneurs. My grandfather was really successful, my uncle, etc. On my father's side is the kind of opposite. My grandfather was a communist. He worked in the military, in the army, and my dad worked all his life for the government in ministry. So kind of two opposing currents. As many of my friends, what I would see, landed on safety And if you have traveled through Germany, that kind of boring safety felt something that I was leaning towards, which was also corporate job. And just the environment pushed me into studying certain things and doing certain things. And I thought doing corporate jobs is everything, is the pinnacle. It is the thing I want to do in my life. And as slowly I started getting these jobs and having experiences, that's when I started realizing this ain't for me, this ain't for me, this ain't for me. So my kind of leaning into where I'm at today and what I'm doing and being an entrepreneur and all these things came by a lot of hitting wall against the head, a lot of dead alleys, a lot of learning for experience, and actually finding that the things that I dreamt of doing when I got to experience them and do them were not the things I felt inspired by. So the inspiration was shaped through all these learnings, all these pitfalls.
Mhm. Yeah, inspiration is sometimes I see it as a mystical element in people's lives, and if you look at the many great people who have shaped civilizations, companies, cities, industries. Not everyone had a very simple life. They had this internal drive, this want, this desire to do great, to escape, to not, don't be an ordinary person, to do something really good. And sometimes some people were able to, and some people were not because of external circumstances. um, but yeah, I think you know what happens around you also, like you said, there's some seen and unseen forces. And I've also seen people who has everything given on a silver platter. They tend to get lazy, lack ambition, versus people who grew up so and so. So it's an interesting fact. I know psychologists study, and I've been always curious about this. I'm curious about potential of self development and the journey. And even in that case, you have a multitude of interests that sort of goes beyond just entrepreneurship. You are into spirituality, into self development, into traveling, into at one point entheogens that are psychedelics. And we have many conversations about different topics. And one thing I fascinates me about you, and I think you're an amazing storyteller, and I've heard plenty
Thank
of
you.
amazing stories that range from uh, an entire element from some people might be like, wow, what's happening, to fact based. Some people might say they're conspiracy, and I've heard so many things. So what was your how did you get into the psychonaut, the psychonaut way of life? What when did that happen?
Well, depends what would you designate as qualifying drugs of psychedelic influence. I would say maybe the first experience was trying MDMA at a party. Um, and I actually remember that party. It was some kind of something white. So everybody's wearing white and they're playing some house music. It was a big thing when we were teenagers. And I was given MDMA and by friends and saying, "Oh, this is a great thing. We should try." And I had such a blast. It was so good. It opened so many pores of life. I was experiencing life like I've never done before. Maybe I did in moments, but as if anybody tried it in good MDMA, in good dosage, in good setting, it really gives you this kind of making love uh, with music, with life, with air, with movement, and I was blown away. I was really I guess a lot of us get blown away. What is maybe a bit different with me? It sticks, it lands, it anchors, and this feeling, and it doesn't leave me. As in, why are we not living life like this? Why are we drinking alcohol? Why are we taking all these crappy substances? What the heck is going on, right? So for many years, I was sticking with that. I had a huge stigma around any other psychedelic substances because what you would have heard at that time in Europe growing up, I left Serbia after high school, and since then I've been living internationally. But everywhere I moved, talking about acid, LSD, talking about these things, there was a bit of a kind of, be careful, you might lose your mind, this might happen, this guy fell, this person did this, went mad, or whatever. So you have this stigma around it. So I was afraid. Though, funnily, I had this, since ever I can remember, which is really kind of curious. I had a couple of inclinations. Since I was a childhood, I had inclination. We were really into UFOs, me and my friends, talking a lot about it. Also kind of talking a lot about this interplanetary travel. How can you reach speed of light? We're reading these books, how can humans reach speed of light? It was in the 90s. And, I had this interest. We were trying to connect our computers when we had the internet and contribute our computing power to some radio signal for searching for extraterrestrial life. And I was doing that when I was a kid. So I had that interest. I also, as long as I can remember, I, for instance, had in my mind, I want to try a psychedelic frog. I never knew that it existed, for instance, but it was just there. And many, many years later, after actually getting into the world of psychedelics, I started learning about the toad, the Bufo alvarius. And it clicked. It's like, oh wow, I have a memory of this. I've been thinking about this for as long as I can remember of myself. And so yeah, that's kind of the journey. It started with MDMA, and slowly here and there, it with trying more substances, you become more open. And typically at parties was the first time I got touched with a lot of these things, and I eventually had my first proper exceptional experience on mushrooms in Amsterdam, where there was maybe the first place in the world selling truffles at that time, though, freely in the shops. And me and my friend ate enormous amount, not understanding, thinking it's going to kick in as well, because it wasn't kicking in. And we also had some edibles. I had some edibles on top, so you can imagine it was quite a ride, and it changed me. I left that thinking, wow, this is my life. I want to explore more of this. What is this view? Same as a blue pill of Matrix, or a fraction of it. That's how I felt from my first experiences.
Yeah, beautiful. The first times are the most memorable ones. Um, and given that also you're also very very much into good nutrition, good diet, of putting in what the body needs, living a healthy lifestyle. Was that post this phase of your life? Has this been an impact, or this is sort of like have been a mantra of yours
That's a good
for?
question. That's a good question. I
And
actually,
I'll tell you why I asked this question, but I'll let you answer.
it's a very good question. And to be honest, I grew up in Serbia, and we there in the country of Serbia eat a lot of meat. Everything is about barbecue, roast, and everything is meat. Every meal since I was growing up, I had feeling there was some meat on the plate. And in Berlin, I made friends with this girl, and we were good friends. We were working together, co-working, and kind of having lunch together. And she was plant-based. First time I think I ever met someone who was a friend who was eating plant-based. So we were going to plant-based restaurants. And I have this memory where we were walking out of a restaurant, and there was a couple protesting it was in Berlin, with holding like tablets with an imagery or a video of some poor pigs being tortured, or not being treated well. And they were advocating and asking for signatures. And I had a bit of a fiery discussion with them, saying, you're sort of wasting your time talking to ordinary humans here crossing the street. We need to go somewhere to authorities. We can't change anything. She, my friend, pulled my sleeve, and she's, let them be. Let them do whatever they want to do. And I did. And that stayed with me. I've seen those images many, many times in my life, but it would just go by, right? But I guess maybe this whole experience of her being plant-based, this guy saying these things, then I started analyzing, what do I eat? I realized there is no meal that goes by without eating meat. So this experiment started in Berlin. Was it influenced by psychedelics directly? Not, but later in my life, when I was deciding to go plant-based, which was some years later, it was San Francisco, New York time, when I was moving to New York, was enabled, enabled, I'd say, by going and sitting with the medicine of ayahuasca. And you need to get into the diet, and that's where I experienced things and come back. So it solidified that approach to living a plant-based. But it was a long journey for me. It was a long journey. It took me a really long time, even to go a day without meat. Then I was able to do a week without meat, etc. But I was eating enormous amounts of cheese at that time to compensate. I was thinking I'll die if I don't eat protein. So yeah, it's a long journey, getting myself educated. Nutrition, I'm still getting educated. I know so little, maybe more than an average human, because I've been 10 years reading about it. But yeah, every day I'm learning something new. So, for instance, the latest learning is about pufas. And that was also a big change in my diet. I removed all the pufas and seeds. It's been maybe a year,
Pufas?
as in polysaturated fatty
Ah,
acids. And yeah, there is some kind of, because when I moved to plant-based diet, I started eating nuts in enormous amount. But then I start, yeah, there is no exact direction. This is better for you than that. There is people that get sick by moving to organic fruit and veggies. For certain reasons, we some scientists claim that it's because their body has went through so much damage that this kind of intake, a waterfall of good energy, is the body is unable to handle it. And so there is no one true path. There is certainly is true not to drink Coca-Cola and eat all these processed foods, for sure, right? But about what is the best for you, I think it's also about starting to feel your body, starting to feel, how do you feel about eating certain things? Are you clearer? Are you more energized? Do you feel better? And yeah, well, I've taken this tangent of conversation sideways, but point being, yes, it was partially influenced by psychedelics, and over the time they solidified a base for me to adopt the changes in my diet and view. It also gave me obviously an angle to view things in different way.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you hit a great point. It's the human system is a complex system. You have a web of inputs, various pathways inside. There is no one data point that and one pathway and one factor that determines, what happens at the genetic level, right? At the peptide level. At the end of the day, we are made of proteins. So that's for that. And the reason I ask you about the health, because during my first ever psychedelic slash plant medicine experience was an Hachuma, San Pedro ceremony, upstate
Wachuma.
New York, Wachuma. And I think you were there as well. We had
Ah,
our own
yes,
group.
we were together.
Yeah, and that was the second time I met you. And after the ceremony, everyone's hearts are blasted open. And that was also the first time I had a little bit of chocolate mushrooms. And I
Yes.
saw, we are sitting at the ground and everything is, shaking and moving. And I think one of the helpers was giving like a speech. She was crying in tears, and I could not uh, stop laughing. But the thing is, when I was looking at Andrea and it's like, what's happening? Why is the ground moving? But what I meant to say was, as we are heading back, we're in the same car, and I was getting hungry. I made everyone stop at, I believe it was Dunkin' Donuts,
Ah,
and I
yeah, you wanted
grabbed.
to eat something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I grabbed an egg and cheese and a croissant. And when you saw this, you looked at me. You gave me this look, like, like, what is this guy eating? It was a silent look. He just asked me what's in it. That's all. So yeah, that was my journey.
How
I
did you
was
feel? How did you feel after eating that?
bloated.
I remember you not feeling so well on the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Memory recall. But yeah, I think right now, I think nutrition is a very important factor in our lives, whether you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, or a normal person, that a lot of us tend to overlook or underestimate. And I believe over the years we have refined your daily routines, because I remember when you were in Tulum, you I remember you don't. I believe you don't drink coffee. I'm
No,
not
I
sure if
don't.
it's
Yeah,
still the
that's
same
true.
case.
That's true. 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 Yeah.
You
Never
maybe
did.
tea or herbal teas. I think over the years you've developed some routine, and you're also big into the mindfulness aspect of life, right? Meditation, breath work, movement. And in Tulum as well, I remember you were trying to do this pose where you stand. Uh, my point is, you are, over the years you have self cultivated some strategies to live optimally that harnesses your mind and body so you can be who you are, the best of who you are. I would love to know what's right now, how you're living your day-to-day life, especially you're in a beautiful setting, with your beautiful wife. How does your days flow?
Well, there is right now. I'm in a in a sprint as I'm building my new company. So it's optimized rather for work, not for healthy living per se. Still do my best to stick to certain routines. And from the health perspective, well, I guess first of all, as I mentioned, we have a little casita, as they would call it in Spain, a little house that is more or less in a forest. We're surrounded with greenery. We don't have any visible neighbors. We have flowers and hedgehogs and birds. So that's things I see. I try and when I wake up, first look at the sun or sunlight before I look at screens. That's some things I try and do. I don't sleep many hours. I'm good with 6 hours sleep unless I'm physically exhausted. So, but my wife does sleep 8 hours plus. It's a bit challenging for me to wake up when it's dark and cold and be silent. We need to make fire here in the house. We have a stove, so we most of the heating comes from burning wood. So I cut wood. I just came from cutting some wood. I make a fire in the morning, and I try to eat fruit first. We have oranges that grow on our land, organic, and mandarins. So I eat things from the land. And over the day, I try to have quality breakfast, which has changed. I used to kind of over times, I used to do intermittent fasting, skip breakfasts, whatever. Now I try and skip dinners or not eat a lot in the evenings. And most of the food we eat, well, I'd say 90% of food we buy is from local farms, organic farms here on the island. I still don't eat meat. I eat fish from time to time. I started eating dairy again, but mostly goat cheese, unless we know where it comes from. So that's kind of my routine. I still try and do daily sit down stillness practice, or you call it meditation, staring into space. I try and do my portion of reading, and my practice is not my spiritual practice is not limited to sitting down. Sitting down is part of practice, or what people maybe would notice, but there is no separation of meditative practice in cutting carrots, brushing teeth, cleaning floor, doing work, speaking to you, or sitting down in meditation. It's the same practice happening throughout any moment that I conscious of or trying to be conscious of. I try to do my fair amount of readings, and I try and separate time for things that are soulful and passion. Unfortunately, I still haven't managed to bridge my passion and my work and make my profession my passion. But I'm working on that. It's kind of a thing that is in making, and I hope it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But yeah, those are some of my routines. I sleep early. I hardly drink alcohol, maybe a beer a week when I'm in Spain. Psychedelic substances I completely reduced. I do take them mostly for recreationally, for fun here and there. I haven't sat in ceremony in many years, and those are some things. I try and turn off my screens at night, not to see blue light. I sleep in full dark rooms, cold rooms.
Yeah,
I
that's
walk. I walk. I swim in cold water. I don't know. I work out. I try and move my body. I stretch. I still do yoga. So there is a list of things.
I think that's more than, I think, 80% of the world's population. What you have going on, the structure to your day, and I think everything is has been blended seamlessly and naturally in your life. Eating fruits, you're placed in a space where you have a lot of this available to you. You're chopping wood, you're connecting with nature, you're going on walks. That's wonderful. It would been a bit more complicated, in New York City. per
Yeah,
se.
yeah, it would. Well, that's one of the reasons I love the cities and life in cities. Cities have their own dose of fun. But I am now, well, I realized that during our time in ethos community living, that the call for nature. And one of the things that I am sitting with for many years on daily basis, sometimes 50 times a day, sometimes one, but is question of dying or bringing back the notion of the fact that we all die, and I don't know when it's going to happen. Might be next hour, next day, next week, and being at peace with it, and at this understanding of how would I like to be, where would I like to be, what would I like to be pursuing, who would I like to be surrounded by if I'm dying. And I definitely would not like to be surrounded by concrete buildings, floors. In the cities, I'd rather be in flowers next to trees or anything of that sort. Nature, stones. And so I try and make that environment then that I would like to be surrounded by. Obviously, many other things, family, people that I care about. But I'm talking about the immediate environment in the city. And that's a major change. And it's also not so easy to make it work. It's not so easy to live in a forest, right? As in be separate. If you still economically depend on making money and doing work, it's not so easy to make everything happen. But I think it's a investment that is worthwhile.
That's a quite some reflection on that. Yeah, it's something that's not we are conscious of, many of us, but it's somewhere hiding in the shadows. These days, if you're on LinkedIn, you'd see Brian Johnson, how he wants to live forever. You have that movement. Yeah, we all want to live out to our fullest, to an extent where we are optimizing, having more breaths, more energy, cutting down the rate of our aging. So you have that as well, and then you have the mystics, who have already adapted to the art of dying, especially if you look at the Tibetan classics, right? You have the Book of Death, etc. How post that you have this, the process of purification, change, and all the other different elements and stages where you are born again. Or maybe I'm just giving a vague representation. I myself don't understand it properly, but it's a process of their own in that culture. You can call it Tibet, Indian subcontinent, and the South American shamans have their own take on it. So it's here, but we are not aware of it. It's yeah.
Yeah, many of these things, which I find the most fascinating discovery of my life, but I brought it to a lot of people. At a time, I was also gifting books and pushing books into people's faces on a lot of these topics, and a lot of people did not find, the majority of them did not find fascination with it as much as I did. But I find these topics extremely fascinating. People are definitely reincarnating. There is substantial proof. If anybody's looking for tangible material proof, there is substantial amount of proof. And as you mentioned, the Book of Dead is an example, which would be also a turn off point for a lot of people. It's like, how does somebody know? Whatever. Maybe it's a different angle at it. I'm really curious and eager and to explore how do you bring these views to the majority of population. And it's something that is also one of my passion projects. But I'm curious, how do you awaken curiosity for whatever, for religion, or may not religion per se. I'm not so much into religion, but in a sense of existence of where is the awareness? What is the awareness? Is it a product of brain activity only, or is it something that is out there, maybe not in your head? And all these topics that are sounding to us, we classify them as supernatural, magical, Harry Potter. But whatever we see in these movies of Harry Potter and books or Lord of the Rings. A lot of these things are daily circumstance and reality for some others. And that's a funny thing. It's not a common sense. The common sense nowadays, we live in materialistic society and materialism as the dominant view, especially where we are at. Well, now you're back in the Middle East, right, or Asia, but in the Western world, it's dominant. It's material. If you can touch it, that's it. That's reality. We're absolutely untrue, even by the very modern Western science that is trying to explain it. It is not what is the reality. Still, that's what people believe in.
Yeah, a lot of people bump into this, at a very early age. They, from the people I've met and interviewed, and some of my teachers, they had experiences when they're young. They saw shadows. They just, without any substances, jumped into an alternative reality, an altered state of consciousness for hours and hours. Connecting with different entities, etc. I've heard these stories, and then us regular people, I don't know, maybe you might have as well. And then our we are accustomed to a couple of certain states of being, like where we have the waking state, we have, and then you have the sleeping state, you have the dream state, and Tibetan Buddhism um, has written about this very extensively. And then there is yogas for dream yoga, how you conduct yourself. And then in shamanism you have lucid dreaming, etc. So it's find this very fascinating. And why wouldn't I think this should be, or one needs to investigate her, build this curiosity at least at some point in their life. Otherwise we'll be stuck in this hamster wheel of taking and consuming and consuming and consuming, um, and then
But maybe
slowly,
it's fine. Maybe it's fine to be stuck in hamster wheel. I think Matrix, the movie, the first one at least, depicts it pretty well. As in, there was that guy, I forgot his name, the one who betrayed them, who decided to go back into Matrix and said, "Fuck this reality. Give me back food, experiences, and pleasure." And I live the gamified life, which feels as real as anything else. So my experience over the time is that not everybody's ready to ditch this indulgence life of pleasures, hamster wheel life, safety, and view. To a lot of people, it's disturbing to find out that there is more to the truth of life and existence.
One of the first times, for me and for many other people who were introduction to the plant medicine. And speaking about specifically, so San Pedro was one of the first ones, and then the later one of the, I've had ayahuasca, like many of us in our group. And then especially our time in Maine was also a very fundamental um, aspect, of me understanding myself and the different elements out there. I remember one specific point where I think you and Andrew had chocolates, and we had it and we sat on the field. It just had an intention, and we started this journey and walk, and it was beautiful. It was my first time hiking with mushrooms. I just got fascinated moment by moment, and I was getting left behind, and all of you are just like walking in the front and exploring. I just want to stay on the ground, and it does give you this sense of connection, this medicine. And individually, it shows aspects about yourself and the little awakening. um, and then jumping into mindfulness and meditation. And we all know, and we all have experienced this, is to ground that in, we need some form of spiritual practice or some form of understanding of the reality we are in, versus always jumping into taking substances to enter different states of mind. And too much of anything is, we feel it could be good for us, but it could And I think one of the reasons you might have retired, and I would love to jump into it, is in the long run we don't need them, and there could be some potential harm in terms of body composition and health, and your mind, your brain, etc. So I'm curious, why the retirement? Because I know you are a little more, you're more proactive in this path, but you slowly shifted away. Is it because you found mindfulness enough, or was there some other reason?
I found that the beginning, a lot of stronger and deeper psychedelic experiences have acted as a springboard into certain spiritual pursuit, creating curiosity, giving an insight or a view of an experience, which helped me to connect to it easier, much, much easier. But then over the time, I realized that I was constantly falling back to the memory of those experiences, or leaning back to a substance to have certain view, certain experience. And it is sort of, it would be great if you could take a certain psychoactive substance and experience awakening to whatever definition of awakening is, let's say in Buddhist view, or Shaiva Tantra view. If you experience awakening or non-dual experience, if you could hold it and embody it and take it out of the experience and it stays with you, that would be absolutely phenomenal. It'd be a hack. We would call it in modern world a pill from a movie, the blue pill, and it's done. But it ain't. It might be more of a window shopping, but if you want to actually go out and experience this, you need to find that. And in an attempt to get to those experiences outside of psychoactive substances, I realized that they are also distraction. And then they get me confused in many ways. So I decided to take a break so I would get more clarity in what I'm experiencing daily, and be able to connect to practice as is without any substance. Though, if you ask me, there is an angle to this. I think that, mind alternation, our mind alternates all the time. Alternate with a joke. You'll move through not feeling so good, being down or depressed, to giggles and feeling happy, right? So it's a constant chemical processes that are going on and are sparked or influenced by many things, by what you drink. And that what you drink, I mean, beer can make you feel dope, and it does for me a lot of times. One small beer on a good sunny day makes you feel great, right? Cacao will alternate, food will alternate, interactions with people, movement, exercise, so many things, the air you breathe, the sense you have. So this tactical experience for sensory will definitely alternate your mind. But the amount of change that you experience if you take a hit of DMT is like a rocket ship change. It's a cacao times light year in explosion of change, right? So it's extremity, and it's all a reality, right? Because you experience it. It's for sure something that exists. Is it something I'm striving for to experience in my call it spiritual practice? The peak experience of DMT? No, my spiritual practice is really about being here now and experiencing the nowness as an experience that is not separate from me. There is no separateness of me or anything else. And I'm in it. I'm not in my mind thinking about what happened in Maine or what's going to happen tomorrow, unless I'm planning for things intentionally. I'm not disturbed by thoughts. I'm not living in this life of constant lostness, because if you start observing your mind, for which you don't need any spiritual beliefs per se, for me, it's an experience. Start observing your experience, you start realizing you're constantly distracted by either future or past thoughts, and you're hardly in here now, unless you're making love, maybe playing sports, dancing. And then you find these moments and you start realizing, oh, there are moments of presence. They happen all the time. They might be minuscule, they might be a fraction of a second, they might last minutes, but it's not easy to flow in that state and be have a stability in that experience. So that's my practice. Find more stability in nowness. Be more in the now, and that's it. That's it. And that's what, if I take a psychedelic substance, it takes me on a journey, right? And the journey is a rainfall of thoughts or whatever, it's a whole dream state, and I'm not in the now for most of the time. I'm not in the now. I'm somewhere. And sometimes you are, right? Because you're also moving on a mushroom. You might be tactically experiencing the present moment. You might be, but then you also get kind of pulled in some different directions. So that's the reason I take a break, is because it pulls me out of the presence.
I think that's wonderfully stated. The power of presence and the power of now. And I think one of the more attribute of that is your heart rate is soft and low. You're not getting triggered by many things because you are here. Your mind is not always jumping in different things. You're like staying and focused, and like you said, right, either you are chopping vegetables, walking in the park, having this conversation. I think that's where one of the goals of mindfulness or a lot of spiritual practices is to take the practitioner from that chaoticness to this now, the spectrum, right? And and it takes practice, and it's not just sitting and meditating. It's like practicing, and there are so many paths, and I find that wonderful and also mysterious to engage. And there's so many different traditions, right? I'm sure you have experienced yeah, I know you're big into Zen Buddhism. You're big into, maybe, I don't know, maybe a couple of other different schools. So, or do you really connect to one specific traditions, or what's your
I've
favorite,
been
I would say?
mostly favorite. Yeah, I'm actually I'm mostly following the teachings of Dzogchen,
Assumption.
which belongs to Tibetan Buddhism and also doesn't. It actually originates from Bonn, and it's a separate practice that it has been embraced by Buddhism. Also, doesn't go against anything that Buddha has taught, but it's also separate in its own nature. But I am following a number of teachers that are from non-dual. They're talking about non-duality. That's maybe a simpler way. So I definitely have a few people that I feel inspired by, follow their either recordings, because a lot of them, well, some of them you can't really access. They're still alive. Some of them have transitioned. But yeah, there is a number of teachers. There is also white people in the United States. I highly recommend, for instance, Adia Shanti, who's a wondrous teacher, and I'm really, really inspired by his teachings. And he has practiced in the tradition of Zen Buddhism, for instance. But what he's teaching, he's not teaching Zen Buddhism. He's just teaching a non-dual view of life.
Is it like Advaita Vedanta?
I,
Is
I
it same
don't know it's
philosophy?
so much similar. There is a lot of overlap. There is a lot of overlap, maybe more with Shaiva Tantra, which I also don't know what is then the relation of it to others, because I have limited understanding of some of these. But yeah, Adia, and you have other teachers. You have Sri Ramana Maharji, who's passed away. It's been maybe 40, 50 years, so he's lived in our lifetime. He's been separate to any tradition. Towards the end of his life, he started talking about a mother and certain deities, but most of his teaching was just in self-inquiry. Who am I? And that's about it. There was no separateness from anything to anything else. There is no this and that. There is no subject and object. That's his, maybe the base of, maybe in a few words, plain language. It's not easy to explain these things.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, one of the things that also sort of, I mean, I have not been to any plant medicine ceremony for quite some time. I sneaked in some magic chocolate from the United States here in Bangladesh.
But
I
it
used
grows
to
in Bangladesh. You don't need to sneak it. I mean, it
ah,
grows. The whole thing is about. First of all, mushrooms grow everywhere. Well, one of the my I'm the follower of a theory that why are the cows sacred in India is the mushrooms grow on the cow poop, literally. And if you turn them around, you'll find mushrooms growing. So you'll find them wherever you have cows. You'll find mushrooms growing. If you have elephants, there's also elephant mushrooms growing out of their dank.
in
So
Thailand, right?
in Thailand, I don't know if there are mushrooms. Do you have elephants in Bangladesh?
I think so. Yeah, there are
Yeah,
elephants
probably.
in
So
Bangladesh.
you'll find mushrooms there. There's probably a bunch of species also that are growing in the forests that you can find, but the most common you'll find in the fields where the cows are, and you just need to go and turn some poop, which is not like a human poop and doesn't smell as much, but it's a bit different. Is used as fertilizer. Anyways, mushrooms grow out of it, so they're widely available. It is kind of straightforward. It's similar to you don't need to import them or bring them. It's there. It's right there. Same as DMT. I mean, same as it's in our pineal gland and most of the living creatures that we know of. Most of the animals have it, or if not all, right? Or the majority, let's say. I don't know exactly, but most of the plants as well, to what we know, have observed. So I'm pretty sure that there is a huge number of plants out there that you can go collect and follow simple guidance from YouTube instructions how to cook DMT, and in 48 hours you have it. It's extracted. You need to do use some kitchen salts to kick it out, but mushrooms are there, DMT is there. It is something that is the nature. It's it is the nature. It is right there in front of us.
Yeah, yeah. Nature provides us with a lot of love, care, free gifts, including things that would maybe you could discover a plant or a leaf that could aid in your digestion, for instance, right? Um, and we have heard stories of how a lot of this has been westernized for profit, say coca leaves and tobacco, etc. Even entire uh, colonization of this, and how this has sort of become addictive to many of us in the world. How you abuse this right now. Even the psychedelics are abused. People.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we humans, we're abusing everything. We're abusing our own children. We're abusing ourselves. We're abusing other humans. We're abusing other animals. Is there any item that is sacred, sweet, cute that we are not abusing? We're abusing everything. We think of ourselves, oh, humans are kind of cool. When they are in many ways, and but overall, we're not. We're abusing. We're literally sexually abusing our own children. We're abusing our pets. We're abusing so many precious, wonderful things, and of course, we're abusing anything else you give in front of us, whether that's alcohol or sacred medicine that is been cultivated for thousands of years, such as ayahuasca. We definitely abuse it.
Yeah, and I think nature have been would react at some point, would retaliate at some point when this would sort of eventually lead to a harsh awakening, I would say. um, and it's yeah, I think what we lack, I mean, just from it's just my viewpoint, is these principles are not embedded into our traditional systems as you're growing, because I think from zero to um, until 3 years old you have a certain aspect of neural development of the child, and then from 3 to 7, and then you have different stages, right? Where do love, empathy, even motivation, the drive, a lot of this neurogenesis, at the end of the day, like we discussed before, it's a part of our brain. It's the signaling of neurons, is the electrical conductivity, it's the level of hormones and everything. So we are a bunch of bacteria at the end of the day, right? So it's interesting how there's an entire world out there, and still don't know if I can connect the dots. That is not, you know, looking up for the best of humanity. The products we use, the chemicals, the water, the fertilizers, the herbicides, etc. And I think you are a big fan of I think this wonderful lady, Shiva, from India. I believe you shared of some of our work. um,
Shiva.
Shiva, she had this like a red
Ah,
dot.
that's not Shiva, but her name is. Oh my God! Wow, it's the top of my tongue. Well, anyways, I'll
Yeah,
come
yeah,
in a
yeah.
second. Yeah.
So
Uh,
there is this force against awakening. um,
yeah. There is. I mean, I would maybe put a question out there. Is there anything that is not the force of awakening? Is there anything that is not nature? It is us taking and appropriated things we gathered from nature and shaping into different products or things. It's all a derivative of something we found on this planet Earth. Some things also fell from space, but the majority, 99.9% of things we found here in the Earth, and we've taken it and shaped it. We shaped out also our hairstyles, our clothes. It's all items, even if it's something artificially made, as in plastic, let's say. How do we make it? We still use some elements we found out there. So I'm more of a kind of, will the nature go retaliate, fight back, create a change? I think it's all, we are nature. We are it. We're it. I don't think there is anything out there that is not us. So are we gonna retaliate against ourselves and stop cutting the branch we're sitting on? And because we're literally polluting the water we're drinking, the soil we're growing our food in, we're polluting the air we're breathing. We are, destroying our own environment. So the only thing is, as a consequence of it, the way I see it is we'll eventually maybe destroy ourselves or poison ourselves or damage ourselves, which is what's happening. To which extent and how long, the if we observe planets and movements or the planet Earth, it operates on different timelines. The universe is moving very slow. Our life is it's a split of a second. Even the existence of humanity, to known origin of humanity, to the maybe the time that Earth has existed. It's, I mean, what a billion fraction of it. It's absolutely nothing. So eventually, yeah, maybe we get hit by a meteorite, which is really high probability, more probable than not, that it will wipe up all the life, or the planet will explode, or something will happen, and by that time, maybe we're all gone. And in terms of times of the universe, maybe it's just like this. And for us, it's maybe millions of years until that happens. So I also don't know. I mean, I understand also your point, and I truly pray actually for us as humanity to awaken from the wrongdoings. It's a massive undertaking to change minds of so many humans. I actually find pessimism in thinking about, is there a way to do it on mass scale? And where I find, though I'm an optimistic person by default, where I find inspiration to keep on going and doing is locally, acting locally or micro locally to my immediate environment, people I share my home with, I pick up trash on my land. There's so much trash removal on this land. We're still picking it up. I try and collect things. I try and act in the immediate environment. And I think that's maybe the path for us to get out of this shit show, is everybody starts doing things just around themselves.
I think that's a wonderful, stepping stone. I really, really appreciate that part. How we, this first step is doing it around us, and I think a deeper level is, within us, and then around us with our family members, spreading one by one. Like you, like the part of, there's a part of you that whenever you meet someone, you strike up. I think you strike up conversations like this. I don't think, knowing you don't shy away from topics like this with friends and family. And then the other person, I'm sure you've met it through your life that people are completely bewildered by what you're saying, um,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
especially, yeah. Um, it's wonderful. It's fascinating, and I think where do you think, since you mentioned origins, I want to jump into sci-fi, futuristic, the UFO zone. Where is the origins of humanity? Are there other interplanetary forces right now? Um, do you know any experiments, or you had any experience you met? I'm just curious, where do you fall in this?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, you have the tales of the Aborigines of Australia claiming to be the elders or the first humans on planet Earth. They have their own tales of the Stone of Inception coming from, I think, the Sirius, and it's their sacred mountain, Australia. What is it called? Uluwatu, that they claim it's shaped as a spear and it's 7 kilometers long and it was a stone of deception. I don't know exactly how the tale goes, but something along those lines. There is ancient Sumerians who have depicted the whole history of sky gods, Anunnakis, coming from the sky, being giants, living for many thousands of years in the beginning, which is in the King's List, then interbreeding with humans and slowly reducing their lifespan, that they brought the blue blood, that they brought the knowledge, that they, whatever, there's many stories there. I think one of the stories is also that they fed us meat to make us more hungry for blood, so we'd fight and create warriors of us and it'd be easier to manage us. That's their stories. They claim that they're also doing DNA experiments and modifying humans. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of, you pick up these crumbs. I don't know, a lot of conspiracies in recent years have come true. So I'm not a proponent of any particular conspiracies. Some things are very kind of easy to deduct yourself. But it's interesting is also the team that has sequenced the DNA and got a Nobel Prize for it, has actually published a paper. It was three guys, French, and one of them has published a paper right after they got the Nobel Prize for DNA sequencing, saying that in the studying of DNA, they believe that it was altered, as in modified, that there was some genetic modification to what they can observe, the way that it's structured. Is that true? How true is it? I would leave maybe somebody who gets to listen to this to do their own research and check it out, open the can of worms and see where it goes. But we're definitely finding more and more evidence in this proper kind of scientific materialistic way of measuring evidence that everything about humanity is getting older. We're finding footprints, we're finding origins of humans that are getting older and older. We definitely didn't move to the US and crossed whatever the story was that humans came 30,000 years ago, because we have artifacts there, probably hundreds of thousands of years old. We're finding settlements, we're finding all these things. So the exact origin and how it came about, I don't know, but there is something mysterious and mystical about it. There's a lot of things that are mysterious and mystical about it.
Yeah, sometimes these are things that keep you up at night and make you do a lot of research, listen to a lot of lectures, and go on this
Yeah,
path. And I think psychedelics. One of the reasons I'm fascinated with psychedelics is sometimes they reveal to you certain aspects of that. I don't know how much of it is. Um, I think a lot of could be subjective, but it does open doors to different layers of reality, as you are fully aware of. and people have tried different experiments back in, I believe back in the 50s or 60s, how the CIA have experimented with LSD, remote viewing, etc. So there's an entire these are taken seriously by the governments, and there's so much we do not know, and people are trying to find out. Just recently, some of having couple of major scientists have been disappearing. American scientists have been disappearing, and also
Disappearing or got killed. There's a few of them that got murdered.
yes, yes, a mix, and I think maybe one suicide. So
Oh
all
yeah,
these
one
are,
guy went missing. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
and also emergence of UFOs. They're not, we're not sure if they're of alien origins or from other countries. So I think a lot of things are happening, especially in this year itself. It's crazy and chaos. And it shows where humanity has reached. Where is our humanity, right? And I'm sure in the last few years what's been happening across Palestine, and now innocents are getting killed. It's I don't know what part of your soul. There's this, I don't want to go into depth. There's this professor, there's this Chinese teacher, Professor Jiang. Have you come across him on YouTube? He's now
I think so. Yeah, he goes and posts a lot of things where he's kind of unrelieving truth, and the guy who writes something on whiteboard and says stuff.
Yeah, he is saying he is using game theory to understand nations, culture, and human motivation. And he has some bizarre theories, of sacrifice and secret societies. So yeah, there's so much mystery, I would say. And I think this is you have sat in many circles and different parties, and you love these topics, I've heard, and you discuss this on different ranges. I would love to know what is the most fascinating, some of the most fascinating things that you feel that people are not aware of, and sort of want to would you'd welcome a conversation or some research.
Well, there is so many things. I mean, I anything you lay your hand on, I have feeling is mystery. Starting with the Great Pyramid and the whole mystery around that, and it's where a lot of people are not really understanding and thinking that we have figured it out. We know how it was made. We absolutely have no clue. And maybe good clue to start is sort of soot from fire, because inside of those pyramids and corridors it's pitch black when it's dark as it gets. And if thousands of years ago they used fire to move around because they had to see what's happening inside, because people can't really see in the dark. If they had torches, we would have found it, traces of smoke and fire, because it goes in the sediments of the rock. We found zero. So they had other way of lighting up these corridors. That's kind of a question mark. There's many of these ancient sites that are quite mysterious. I kind of, that those are things that I love researching. It's my hobby to study it. The other things, I mean, UFOs or UAPs, as the governments name them, an unidentified aerial phenomenon. There is also like the water phenomenon, underwater phenomenon. But governments of major countries, including the U.S., the imperial force of the United States, has came forward and said, "Oh yeah, these are all verified UAPs. We don't know what they are. They fly around." We also can't really trust government, but we definitely, if you study the movement of some of the videos that the military has confirmed as verified and true, used whatever airplane cameras, etc., the way these objects move in the sky, if you were to put human inside, the human wouldn't be able to survive, because it's so many G's of force. The changes, it's absolutely going against our understanding of gravity, the density of air and the physics. We don't understand how can object move like that. It's unexplainable, right? So those are really interesting things. If somebody doesn't believe it, but the government says, well, it's just go study it, go talk to some physicists and check it out. Those are interesting things for me. And then, all these other topics we talked about. spirituality. Also, there's a lot of people that have harnessed what we would call special abilities, mind sight. They are able to hear thoughts of others, see from minds of others, communicate at distance telepathically. And that's also been a topic of studies of many scientists for many years, studying like Rupert Sherdlock. I'm really bad at pronouncing his surname, pardon. Rupert, the author of the morphic resonance. And just go and check out his work with dogs, being able to tell when the owners are coming back home. It's an old one. Or parrots that are able to tell what their owners think. Or any studies of autistic children that are extremely telepathic and are having these crazy abilities. And if one doesn't believe it, go and find a kid and interact with them a bit, and you'll see yourself. So these things are very real and very, very mysterious, or opposite of what it's a notion of our daily life. So I find them all curious, and I highly I love researching, studying, exploring, and I highly recommend other people to dive into it if they have interest.
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. And let's quick just jump into maybe one or topic two more. One of them is like what are you building right now? What's your current focus?
As in business work or
Yes,
passion work.
I would love to hear both.
Business work, I'm building a solution to enable small business owners, non-technical solopreneurs, people that have full-time jobs, want to start their first business on the side, or have a small business like mom and pop shops, and have struggles how to do it, how to succeed, how to get customers. So we are helping them to launch their ideas, turn them into functional business by connecting them to work with mentors, making them a launch plan and kind of a software that keeps them accountable, creates plans, and reminds them what to do. So keeps them focused. We're coming back to focus and priorities. And also the major component of it is actually tech. We're taking a lot of automations, AI automations and tools that are fairly complex to implement and use, and we're making them extremely easy to use at a click of a button, do a lot of things. So to bridge this gap of non-technical people that don't know how to build websites and do automations, to be able actually to run campaigns, do things. And so that way we hopefully create more independence, have people, enable people to have extra income or gain independence from the capitalistic society and the hamster wheel. That's something that I'm doing for work. Besides, I still mentor at certain programs. I work for venture capital funds, I scout for venture capital funds. So it's world of tech investments. I work for a fund from Silicon Valley, which is quite large, operates globally. So I do work in many markets, in person and online. That's all business that eventually I want to shuffle to my passion. And my passion project, one of them is called the Awakening Experiment. And I'm putting together what you would be able to describe as an experience/exhibition that will be in the cities, and you can come as with a family or kids and go for real life experiments to show you how brain hallucinates reality. So for every sense, we get your senses confused in a entertaining way. It's an entertainment and education with the goal of planting a seed of where is the awareness coming from. So that's something that I've been cooking for a while, and it's taking a moment. It's not easy to put art into life, especially of larger size. It needs capital investment support. So a lot of work that I'm doing is intended to create financial capacity to finance my own passion project.
Wow, that's I'm really excited that you're working on that. I think it will be a really interesting experiment just to see. And I think art installations, exhibitions, are one of the best ways to awaken the senses to open up your perspective. I remember I was in Turkey, I think a year and a half ago, just in Istanbul. I was just walking. There was a really cool exhibition, and this is during the genocide in Gaza.
Hmm.
You could it was so beautifully laid down. You had, like, one of the one of the exhibition stalls were like glass pieces, broken buildings, cars. You had screaming of children. Like, it's also visual. Like, if you walk the path, like if you just go in and go out, it would put you to tears. So yeah, exhibitions are a really powerful way, and I think what you're doing, I'm looking forward to having it, run through its completion phase, and keep me posted,
For sure.
Janko.
For
Yeah.
sure, we'll
So
do.
yeah, it was a really pleasure talking to you. Thank you for this wonderful uh, opportunity. You shared some amazing perspectives on different parts of life, and I think your purpose speaks to it, what you're doing, and continue thriving in nature. And I think you'll be an inspiration to many people, the people you talk to, the people you come across. And before we part ways, is there an advice that you give to maybe yourself, that your younger self, that you wish you knew back then?
Of advice to my younger self, depending on which age. Something that landed on my mind when you were saying that, maybe.
Don't go to the ayahuasca ceremony.
No, no, for sure. No, that's the opposite. I highly maybe go earlier. That would be a good one. Go earlier and sit in the ceremonies earlier in life. Though I'm also perfectly happy with things, the way things played out for me. But I maybe the major thing is about rather understanding how this capitalistic game work, and from that perspective, and going earlier into entrepreneurship. That's one thing. Or and another thing is maybe, or for sure, going earlier into certain spiritual pursuit and practice. Maybe giving myself a
Thank you.
book of Crystal in the Way of Light is one of the books, how I got introduced into Dzogchen, by Chogyal Namkhai Norbu. And maybe giving myself that book when I was 14, 12, 15, whenever, rather than 30.
And do you have any recommendations on the topic of entrepreneurship and finding your own path forward? Do you have any favorite books on that side?
Books on entrepreneurship. I I mean, it really depends. There is so many. It's kind of an education in itself. I rather say on entrepreneurship, what I maybe find the most inspiring are stories of people doing things, like practical things. I find the Shoe Dog book fun. At some point of time in my life, I found it really motivational when I was going through tough times, because Phil Knight was going through tougher times, so I was able to relate to someone. Um, but on entrepreneurship, no specific books. I'd rather say doing doing it. It's very practical things. If any book, then the basics of building business, like the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and the Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. The Mom Test is a very simple book. It's how do you talk to people to actually check if your idea has tangible interest in life. So these are the most basic books to start with.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
You're
there's a
welcome.
lot of information out there, and one of the things I've seen myself, given any topic, there are times we tend to consume, and delay the action. And I think you're asking us to go into the field and practice
Yeah,
and
just
take it
stop
in.
reading, just do something. Go and we also stop thinking about entrepreneurship as something doesn't need to be the most innovative or unique thing. We see entrepreneurship everywhere around us. People make bread and somebody comes and buys it. So it's a kind of trade, box shifting, items selling. And so, what is the trade that you can make happen? And some people are born into it, born with it. Some are not. But it's a skill that can be taught by actually taking action. So that's what I say to a lot of people: stop reading, just do something. Go and try to sell anything and fail at it, and do it 10, 15 times, and eventually you'll hopefully find a way sooner than 100 repetitions. But by actually doing, you'll learn it. You won't learn entrepreneurship behind a screen, behind a book. By reading, you'll learn it by doing. Maybe behind the
Okay.
screen you can do stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
Great.
So thank you so much for this, wonderful moment. It's great to reconnect with you. I hope to, continue this sometimes in the future. And you have a great time in Ibiza. Say hello to Reiki. Reiki, is that her? Is that your wife's name?
Ricky, yeah. Yeah.
Reiki. Yeah, you guys, I think, have a really an interesting match of a mystical match, I would say. So I think you guys both inspire each other based on what I've seen when I met you guys in New York. I think you came by for a quick little party we had by the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
But hope to see you guys soon. And yeah,
Cheers. Thank you, Shamim.
thank,
Thank you for having me.
of course.
And appreciate catching up and sharing. Speak soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.